we
Mm-hmm.
feel like, am I doing enough? Am I the best that I can be? There's like so much pressure to be perfect, performing on for ourselves, for others, whatever, that manly mentality or that masculine energy of performance and strength and having it together and doing it all right. Am I doing everything right? Sometimes you're not, and sometimes you're not enough in a situation. It doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. Like sometimes you
Are
can't.
you going through life blind? This is Eyes Wide Open with Nick Thompson. On this podcast, we share knowledge and stories that build human connection while elevating stigmatized societal issues such as mental health, holistic wellness, culture, free speech, and more. All to ensure we show up in the world with our eyes wide open. Hello and welcome to this episode of Eyes Wide Open. Today we have Eli Weinstein, or as I find out in the middle of the recording, actually goes by Eli, even though I have been calling him Eli since we met a few months ago. But Eli Weinstein is a licensed clinical social worker, therapist, and also specializes in couples and parenting. But today we're going to have him on to talk about men's mental health, his journey to decide he wanted to be a therapist, the work that he does now, and really all about human connection and the people that have inspired him in his life and his line of work. You know, he's become a pretty reliable friend, I would say, of mine, and his empathy and his compassion and his genuine curiosity to understand what you're feeling and what your experience is. And it's really genuine. It's really nice to see, because I think today in the world, we are all very focused on ourselves, which we do talk about in this episode. So it's great to have Eli as a friend of mine and then have him on this show. Again, we'll talk all about men's mental health. We'll talk about mental health in general. We'll talk about the stigma surrounding it, choosing a therapist, why you would choose a man, why you would choose a woman, and so much more. So I hope you can listen to this episode, learn a little bit about male and men's mental health, and that will help you go through the world and maybe look at the males in your life, or if you're a male, you'll be able to go through your life with your eyes wide open. Hello, welcome to Eli Weinstein. He is a licensed clinical social worker, parenting and relationship expert therapist, and he is joining our show today also as the host of the Dude Therapist podcast, which I was recently on. But most importantly, he is a father and a husband, and from what I can tell, doing a really good job. So welcome to the show. And
Depends on who's looking and when, you know?
right, exactly. Well, I remember when you mentioned when we first got connected a few months back, you were asking to reschedule your episode because it was your daughter's birthday. And I was like, wow, that's like priority. I like that. Yeah.
You know, family, that's how I was raised. Family first. It's like one of the most important things that I can remember growing up from my grandparents and just my parents and the way they live their life, and something my wife and I commit to, that we're just, bought into that.
That's so like family values are so precious, and not everyone has them. So it's nice to see. So my favorite question to ask everyone, we'll give it to you here. What did you want to be when you were growing up, and how did that change to where you are now?
You know, it's really interesting. When I was growing up, I really wanted to play baseball.
Like in the MLB?
Yeah, I'm a huge Yankee fan. I was obsessed with Derek Jeter. Shout out to him, his commitment to the Yankees, for 20 something seasons, and just that, that piece of history. I used to remember going into my backyard. We had like a brick wall in the back of my house, and I used to pitch against the wall, like the square. But here's the thing that changed everything. I suck at baseball. So like the ability was never there. My skill was never there. And I had two dreams. It was to be a baseball player and a singer, because I was in a traveling choir as a kid.
Okay. So you had talent there.
I was able to do that.
Okay.
Now I just sing in the shower. And to my kids, that's where it kind of stays. It's nothing, I'm no Adele or, Harry Styles, or I don't know why I went with only British singers. But to me, it was about, though, especially the singing was about connecting to people in like a very real way. Because like music moves us and it moves you. So I actually still miss like the drum beat from the concerts, like in my heart, like that feeling of the music through you. So it's why like I always listen to music with big headphones, or when I'm in my car, my wife, when she comes and uses the car, she has to lower the volume because I'm like, I might get like 25 on the level of the, because I just want to feel, I like to feel the music. So to me, it was always about connecting like that feeling or that moving experience. And it then translated into helping people in that way.
Which
So
is
I was going to be
connection again.
yeah, just connect that connection. So I was going to be a doctor, but I don't have the
Okay.
brain for it. Like I can't memorize things that way. I don't have the patience to do it for 10 years. So I thought to myself, what can I do to help people on a real deep connecting way that I know I can do with my ADHD and with the way I memorize things and think and whatever ways I can be successful. And to me, that was being a therapist.
And when did you decide that? Was that in high school? Were you already in school?
In high school, I really was just living life with my friends and just enjoying. I would say it was when my first year in undergrad, I had a professor who was a psychologist for like Psych 101, those intro classes. And he was just someone that I wanted to be, like just him. His name is Dr. Alan Perry. This was in Truro in Queens. And he was just this hilarious older man who just connected with every person he spoke to. And he really just made you feel amazing, whether he knew you or not. And he was just a very kind man, very sassy and hilarious, and had a very sharp humor. But the conversations with him and to know what it actually meant to be a therapist versus what you read, see on TV, or maybe hear about from friends or people who have gone through therapy, he lived it. So I was able to really like take him on as a mentor and chat with him and meet with him and talk to him a lot. And he kind of convinced me to go that route. He's like, don't go a medical route. It's too classic. Just go something different.
Yeah. So that's interesting because you kind of thought that you wanted to help people. You didn't really know how. And then you find, a man. I know I wanted to get your takes on men's mental health. I'm not sure when you were born, but
90s, early 90, 91.
Oh, okay. So it's still a pretty stigmatized issue in society today. So it was back then when you were going through school too. So what was did he have a take on that, or how did you? Because just like men, it's difficult. It's hard for me to even get this question out. It's difficult to talk about.
I went to therapy as a kid because I had ADHD. Still do. So I was taking medication, felt, of course, very, very out of the box. Mm-hmm. I felt very uncomfortable about that truth about me. Not the symptoms. I wasn't uncomfortable about the symptoms. I was uncomfortable about the truth that I needed help.
Yeah.
I got pulled out of class to resource room, or I would go to after school. My mom would pick me up after school while everyone else was going on the bus. And that one time a month, my mom would pick me up. Why is your mom here? I'm going to a doctor's appointment. That's what I used to say. And it was really to go to a therapist, a psychiatrist, to back in the day, psychiatrists would actually see you longer than 10 to 15 minutes like they do nowadays. And she would be my therapist, and I would go to the school counselor once a week, just to make sure that I was doing well in school performance-wise. It wasn't because I was quote unquote crazy or nuts or whatever words that people used back in the day and still use. Yeah. But I felt off. I felt like I didn't fit in. I felt like something was wrong with me. And I felt like that. And if I look back in my journals, actually, because that was something they asked me to do, the marble notebooks journals, not like the fancy moleskin journals that we have nowadays. I wrote a lot of that stuff. Like, I feel very out of place, or I don't belong. When in reality, I had friends, I had family who loved me. I was involved in this and that. I was doing this choir thing. I just felt there was something, a part of me that realized that the way people viewed mental health was off and not healthy.
When you viewed it off and not healthy from what you're saying, and that there was something wrong with you.
So, and imagine what other people might have thought if they actually said it. Who knows? I never asked them, and I didn't give people the opportunity or didn't even share it that often.
When were you diagnosed with ADHD?
Like 7 or 8. It was very obvious.
So it was young.
Like, yeah. It was very obvious. I was that kid who could not sit still in class and was just singing and dancing all the time, and like jumping off the walls and very happy living life.
Right.
So like it was pretty obvious, like that
Yeah.
something, not that something was wrong, but I couldn't function in school that way. Like I actually just found out recently I skipped a grade. I skipped pre-K and went right to kindergarten because I was too much for the teacher socially,
Oh my gosh.
not because I was smart enough. And I actually, when I went to kindergarten
What?
and I started school, um, I told my parents that my brain hurt. Like I wasn't ready for it yet.
That's the point of preschool, is to kind of prep you with playtime and school and sort of integrate you into that type of lifestyle. That's so interesting.
I don't know. I wasn't there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wasn't, but having, and it was always female therapists.
Mm-hmm.
So to like answer your question realistically, having someone, and also to be totally transparent, my brother went to therapy when he was in high school, for some behavioral things, and he had a male therapist. And the only reason he would go to therapy was because it was a male therapist. He didn't want to go to a female therapist because he wanted that comfort level. And when I found, Dr. Perry, it was just this instant connection.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I can't really say the jokes he would make about mental health and back in the day of him going through it and men. It was a little crass and not so PC and not so nice. I'm not here to get canceled or get you canceled.
Offense.
But if you want, I can always text you about it another time and tell you the jokes he would say. But he was just very real and honest about what it was like to be a therapist in the 70s and 80s. And the view and the shift of diagnostics, the terminologies that they used comparatively to today's day and age. And he was very big on what it was like to be with someone struggling with mental health and to feel it, not just to have a word describe someone, but what it looks, smells, sounds, tastes like. Mm-hmm. Kind of all yourself in the experience of diagnosing and helping someone. He was a wacky dude. So I connected with that. So because he was wacky and all over the place,
makes him authentic too.
Oh, there was no mask. There was no fakeness with him. Even the way he would run his class, he would have finals and he would tell you the questions beforehand. He would have like 4 or 5 like essay questions. And 2 weeks before the final, he would literally tell you he would have like a review. He's like, if you're not here in class and you didn't get the review, you're going to fail. Not my fault. So come, show up. He would tell people the week before that he's doing it the next week. He's like, just show up. I don't care if you show up any other time. If you don't want to be here, don't be here. If you want to do well, that's all you care about, you're welcome. But if you want to actually learn every week, the people who show up every week are not going to have a problem with these questions. And He would never show up to the final. Every final we had, he never showed up. He always had a sit-in of like a student from another class. He's like, you shouldn't be asking me questions. I told you already what the final's about. And he just didn't care. He was like, just straight up, like, this is what I'm giving you.
He was so honest, though.
So honest. He's like, I don't care. If you do great, I'm very proud of you. If you don't do great, it's because you didn't show up. Sorry. Like, that's like how he dealt with that life. So I very much admired his style of how he dealt with the world.
Right. Well, I'm sure that translates into anyone he would be treating at any point too, right? Because it's about accountability, and you got.
Yeah, he worked in a psych unit in Brooklyn, so he was very like real and honest to help people.
You know, one of the interesting things that you had said earlier, talking about your brother, when I started therapy for real, I had a little bit when I was in my early 20s that I kind of just started to figure out what it was and all that stuff. When I got serious about my mental health and finding a therapist, it was 2016. And I was the opposite. I was like, I can't talk like this to a man. I have to talk like this to a woman because a man isn't going to understand. And I think it's so interesting because I've never really reflected back until you just said that now, why I wanted a woman, because I didn't think a man would be kind. I didn't think a man could understand. I didn't feel comfortable sharing my feelings as a man with a man. And I talk about mental health all the time, but I think it's very interesting how we have those, in our mind and we don't even really necessarily know it.
Well, and it's funny because I have a female therapist now. Mm-hmm. And I'm not someone to shy away from sharing. I have guy friends, my dudes, my bros, whatever you want to refer them to as. And I'm very just real. I I'm a very honest, transparent person. I'm not mean. I'm just I say how I feel and don't really
I'm the same way.
worry that much. Sometimes depends on the person, but when I trust someone and I have them in my circle, it's that, constant, realness. But
Yeah.
for some reason, I've always gone towards female therapists. But the reason that I've found is because there are more options. There are just majority more women in the mental health field. I would say about 90 to 95% of therapists on psychology today, or any resource or referral system, is going to be female in your area. So it's just access as well. And there's just, and I'm not saying that men can't be softer, but I think when there's a vulnerability and softness that goes into the mental health process, I think we look for that, that comfort, and that safety of softness. But it really depends on what you're looking for. I've worked with people that search out for males specifically because as women, they don't trust a woman, to be honest, because they think they're going to be catty. And I see men who are looking specifically for a man because they think that only a guy will understand them. Not about the ability to be vulnerable, just that you'll get me because you're a dude and I'm a dude. So
Right.
this is going to work.
Like a camaraderie of sorts.
Yeah, exactly. It's why people look for similar races, religions, ethnicities, and cultures when it comes to therapy, because you'll understand a little bit of my background, not me 100%. So it is funny how I've always went towards female therapists because that's what I was used to all my life. It's not something that I have against male therapists. I hope not, because I am one. That'd be kind of awkward. But it is something that's just also, I think there's just a lot more access to, even in my class in grad school, there were like hundreds of people. I think in my class of, let's say, every class I had, it was like 30 to 45 people. There were 1 to 2 men in the class.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm going to have to look that up. I'm curious the numbers on that. And I think it's interesting because it's just so like ingrained in culture, and it's not even necessarily like, I don't think it came from like an original bad place. It's just the way society was structured, where, men go work all day, women, stay at home with kids or a housewife or both. And, the man's got to be tough. The man's got to come home. He's got to provide. He's got to, do the hard work around the house, the landscape, like whatever that is. And so there just wasn't any space for men to speak about it. And then if you would like, who would you talk to? You couldn't talk to your bros, right?
Yeah.
It's very, even now, like it's hard for me sometimes to share some stuff with my friends. My one of my best friend, his mom passed away about a year ago, and when we were talking about it one night, he like cried that's like the first time I've ever seen him emotional like that. And I didn't know what to do. Like I had no idea what to do. Do I hug you? Do I pat you on the shoulder? Because it's ingrained that, you just toughen up.
Yeah.
Just toughen up.
But beautiful that he felt that comfortable to do that in front of you and with you. And I think the thing for, just to go back to that idea of like, if we look at a classic style of heterosexual relationships and families, the mom is always considered the nurturer.
Mm-hmm.
But you do see beautifully nurturing fathers. It's not that men are not nurturing. They haven't needed to be.
Right.
Or they didn't need to tap into that because of just the wife was at home or whatever the structure used to be, that it was built in that, okay, you're taking care of that. Everything else needs to be taken care of. If you're busy with that, I have to be busy with this, and kind of like shut off that part of them. But it's part of everyone. And I think it's a human thing to be a nurturer and a loving person, or a compassionate, caring with emotions. But even that idea of a friend crying and you're like, what do I do here? Because we don't talk about it. We don't understand what it's like. But, if your partner cried, you would know what to do. It wouldn't be so foreign to you, because you would see that more often than once every 30 years, right? It wouldn't, so it creates this comfort within that system I'm not saying we have to go and cry every day, and go and take a video and send it to all your guy friends and be like, this is what I look like when I cry and here's what I need.
Like in your
But
fantasy football group chat or
yeah, right.
something.
It's like I lost, It's like, how could you?
Right.
But in reality, women just have that side of them when they are just more vulnerable and open to do that in front of their friends. And it's interesting if you watch, and I've seen this happen many times, either with my wife or with friends. Well, they'll cry and then apologize for crying. I'm so sorry. I'm so emotional. And there's so much love and support, anyways. There's no like, you should be sorry. How could you? No one ever says that. And if they do, you don't talk to them ever again. Um, but with men, there is a shift of this idea of like a tribe mentality that we create, and how we show up and support each other is not going to be the same as women support each other. It might be, I'm just here to listen, or I'm here to be there with you. It doesn't have to be this overly emotional experience to have that vulnerability. It could just be, hey, I'm really stressed and struggling about money. Oh, me too, man. Or, my kids are really, really hard and I don't know how to deal with it. It doesn't have to be this, you know, experience of crying and big emotions. It could just be simplicity of sharing.
Right.
Any father, any man can connect with an issue that you have as a man. Like, oh my gosh, my week was so stressful. Who doesn't feel that? So I think if we start sharing simplistically with just how we feel and not like, you good, bro? Yo, do you see the sports? Or like, even, and I know we make those jokes about men, but men do talk that way,
Oh, totally.
right? It's not like we're just like generalizing here. It happens every day, but it could be a check-in. Hey, how are you doing? And I keep pushing this idea of something I heard from Ryan Clark from The Pivot.
Mm.
He asks his like male friends, how are you doing? Are you okay? And what do you need? And like, how are you doing is general. Are you okay right now? And is there anything I can do for you?
We could do so much better doing those types of things. And I have been trying to get better at doing that myself, not just with my guy friends, but with all of my friends, because I do feel like sometimes these conversations that we have, they become a little superficial. And then you start building like these patterns almost, or habits of having superficial conversations. And in reality, like you're kind of losing, you're still connecting, but you're like losing that deeper connection. And so I realized with some of my friends, I was, especially over the last couple of years, everything's been like insane, in the world and in my life. And so, I just found myself like, I just lost touch with people, and it was not by any choice, but I just, I didn't send those check-ins, or in some cases, unfortunately, I didn't respond to the ones that were sent to me. So it's, it's just a interesting dynamic.
And I think recently something that really put a damper on that has been COVID. I think, just to point out the obvious, when we became isolated and we by nature were kind of making sure that we survived in the stressful world that was created, whether it was the family unit just not killing each other, whether it was relationships, whether it was yourself within the balance of life and not being able to, whatever the thing was, we lost that sight of other people because it became very individualized. Like, I need to survive. And that's why like all those videos of like everyone banging the things for the nurses and like everyone, caring about other people in a time like that exploded, because it's like, what about yourself?
Yeah.
I think it's kind of conditioned us to do that a little more easily, where we worried a lot more about ourselves than others.
Yeah.
And I think there just needs to be a pendulum swing of a balance. And that's, something that's very hard when you're so used to really focusing on self and surviving. And I think and that happens when we're just so anxious and stressed about life. And I think if we have a better balance in our life, we have more space. We have more space to be able to, like your life with reality TV and the nutso-ness of that also was extremely isolating, that pulls you away, and how many people can actually connect to you on that level of what it was like to be there. It doesn't matter how many amazing interviews you do and wonderful ways that you express it. I'll never know what it was like to be there unless I was there with you. I'm sure that actually creates some camaraderie with some of the people who were there, that bought in maybe bonded trauma of experience,
Trauma
unfortunately.
bonding.
Yeah. But in reality, like we isolate sometimes when we get overwhelmed, and then we don't know how to share again or how to answer because we're just too self-focused for good reason, right? To survive and be okay.
It's funny that you recognize that about the whole reality TV experience, because I remember I obviously went through a public divorce, and then I lost my job shortly after or during that process. And, I just remember being like, no one understands this. And this is the most isolating and depressing feelings that I've had. And, even to this day, I actually did a podcast with Vox earlier today, I don't think it's a podcast. I think it's a show, but anyway. And, we were talking a little bit about like how the show's changed me. And I said, and I don't think I've really said this out loud before, but I feel like I'm never going to be the way I was before. And, we all have experiences, and everyone's experience is unique. And you can't, I'm very confident when I say people should not put anything on your experience. Like, they can support you, but they do not get an opinion on it. Their opinion of what you went through is not valid, quite frankly. And but when I found myself saying that today, I was thinking, wow, like part of that feeling is like nobody gets it. And no matter how many times I can say my marriage was real, I really lost my partner, I lost my best friend, I lost, a whole new family. And by the way, I did it in front of the whole wide world. And how much it hurt to know that I went in with the best intentions to either, get married or not, but I didn't care about anything else. Like, I didn't care about the fame or the clout or the followers or anything like that. And so, yeah, it is very isolating having gone through this, and it's not their fault. It's not your friends or family's fault. But like, even my family, for example, like my mom, so over the holidays, I don't see my family all the time. I see them on holidays mostly by choice, and also just distance. But I remember it was so weird because we went to my mom's Christmas Eve, and then I have two sisters and a nephew, and we were at my dad's Christmas Day, and it didn't, like, nobody asked, nobody talked about it. Nothing. And it was just like and again, this is just how my family is. My sisters asked, but the day before, but just acted like it didn't happen. And that's what I think people see when they watch a reality TV show. They think they see that however long it is. Sometimes it's a season, sometimes it's multiple seasons, but like, they really don't know that a lot of these relationships, friendships, whatever it is, they're real. And they really impact you just as a normal divorce or breakup, in my case, would. It really it impacts me to this day, where I think about it, and I think about, how I went through this whole experience, and I just don't feel like myself. I'm not as confident as I used to be. I don't trust my decision making as well as it used to be. I worry that I'm becoming jaded. I worry that I am, reverting back in some instances to who I used to be, which was very irritable, very angry, very reactive. And I have worked so hard to get away from that. And it just really makes me kind of think, am I ever going to be the same? And nobody understands.
Thank you so much for sharing all that. It's really, really like a powerful thing for me to hear, because, I've gone through trainings with trauma work, and it's very similar. And of course, you went through somewhat of a trauma of that,
Totally. All of the trauma, none of the benefits is what I say.
Right. All the trauma, no benefit. Right. And it's one of the most isolating experiences, because someone else might have had a similar trauma, but it is something that changes you forever. And it's not something that, we always talk like, it doesn't have to define you, but it is a part of you. But it could be pretty defining for many years. It could be defining for 10, 15, 20 years of your life while you're working through to find a new definition of self. I mean, we're always constantly changing. And I think as men, we're starting to become more self-reflective to make those changes, and not just be like, this is what I am, so bleh, right, and like deal with it, which is something that people say all the time. You see women are constantly like reading and looking and searching and growing. I'm in my year of growth. Comedians always joke around like, this is my year of growth, hooray me, like 2023 is going to be different, and men don't do those, January affirmations. They're like, I'm going to work out more and lose some weight, or this year I'm going to win fantasy football.
This year I am going to win fantasy football. I just want to be clear about that.
Yes. But there are very big, beautiful forces in the world of people like yourself, even myself, and a lot of other men who see that how they were or how they are might be good for now, but it doesn't mean we cannot pivot, make some tweaks and adjust this and adjust that. But our past doesn't have to define us, but it is something that definitely plays a role in how we either change or get scared to change or uncertain. And it's a lot. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and especially with your stuff, it's like front and center in the world. This is not like in your hometown of, a few thousand people. This is like the world watched your show.
Yeah.
And like, even though I think it's really funny that everyone talks a big game, I would love to be famous and I would love to, you don't even know, like, you don't know like what the world is like when 100,000 or 4 million people are commenting, how could you, or what's wrong with you, or analyzing and nitpicking everything. Even if you know that they don't know you, it messes with your head because it's just noise. It's noise of criticism. And you never see, and this is why I wanted to connect with you. I love your story and I love your personality. And it's just so funny because you don't have people commenting, you're doing great. I really appreciate your honesty on the show. Like, people don't send that. No one's like, they're like, you suck, And it's more so, yeah. It's so hateful when it's like you're watching from Netflix something that was recorded a year or two earlier, as it's in like it's happening right now.
Heavily edited,
like it's happening right now. The secret of the magical cups. I actually just noticed something of a TV show that they didn't use the cups. I'm like, hey, it's halfway through the episode and it got full again. What happened? It was like The Bear, and the show The Bear.
Oh yeah. I haven't watched it.
The guy was holding a cup and it filled up, and I went, that was 10 minutes ago. It was empty.
They need the gold goblets.
You got to get the gold goblets. They didn't take a line from, all the Bachelor shows and the Nation Love, All Love Is Blind. They didn't get in there. But it's something that is a defining factor for us. And I think as we owe it to ourselves as humans to see it, work through it, and understand what that means going forward. And it's not a problem that you're not the same person.
Yeah.
But like, it gives you an opportunity to redefine,
That's a good point.
Okay, so you're not the same person, but I can now redefine it to be this person. And that could be a beautiful opportunity. No matter, even though it sucked, by the way, even though it sucks and it's painful. Yeah, it sucks, but like, okay, who am I now?
Right.
Versus who am I not?
What's interesting is I remember I have been journaling since I was a kid. Usually it would manifest. It used to manifest in like creative stories. But now it's a little more, how am I feeling in this moment? Why am I feeling this way? What's something good that come out of this? How can I reframe it? All of that stuff that you're supposed to do. Right. But there was one day that I just went, I don't even know how to, I actually didn't feel like writing. So I actually just downloaded an app and I just started talking what I was going to write. And then I read it back after. And it was after what was one of the worst days of my entire life. And it was just this manifestation of everything that had happened. The year was coming to an end. This was last year. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I don't want to be in the public eye. I want to put this behind me. This was the worst thing that could have happened. I did everything I possibly could to do this right. And I just wrote, and it was very much like, I'm never going to be the same. It was very much like I lost everything. I've lost my job. I've lost my new family. I've lost my partner. And it was just this really, I almost want to say humbling moment, because I'm always just so confident and power through and, do the work and everything's going to be fine. Do the right thing. Everything's going to be fine. And it wasn't. And I think that's something that is very relatable to a lot of people, to feel like you've done the best you can and still come up short. but it was very hard to like get all of that out. And I still go back and read it sometimes just to like remember I've made a lot of progress in the last 8 months, but it's tough to do. It is tough, especially when you're just in the day-to-day grind.
Well, I love that. And so I wrote something. Sometimes when I started doing this recently, and sometimes when I'm doing therapy with a client and I have like a good one-liner about something,
Mm-hmm.
the way my ADHD works is that I don't remember it after I say it. Like it's gone. And so I started writing them down and making like Instagram posts or things about it. And there's something that I said to someone, I think last week or 2 weeks ago. I haven't posted the post yet because I don't care to. Whenever I feel I want to, I will.
Yeah.
That's my motto of social media these days.
Mine too.
I wrote, and I'm looking for, I said, sometimes you're not enough, and that's okay.
I love that.
Like sometimes you're just not. And I think that, especially since going back to like the main topic of like men, we feel like, am I doing enough? Am I the best that I can be? There's like so much pressure to be perfect, performing on for ourselves, for others, whatever, that manly mentality or that masculine energy of performance and strength and having it together and doing it all right. Am I doing everything right? Sometimes you're not, and sometimes you're not enough in a situation. It doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. Like sometimes you can't.
That's why I wear "It's okay to not be okay" every
Yeah.
day as a reminder.
And even if you are okay, sometimes it's still not enough. And that's great because sometimes you just can't access that right now. Sometimes you're having one of the worst days of your life and you're not enough at your job and you're not enough in your relationships because you cannot be enough. And there's more work to be done to be enough for yourself to accept that. And I would text me later. I would love to know what that app is because that's awesome. Because I think so many people have a hard time writing their thoughts down. And I think to be able to speak, and I think also listening back to how it sounds or even how it comes out when you're just ranting or thinking out loud and having stream of consciousness is more revealing than controlling your pen and being, no, I don't want to write that right now.
Well, and that's exactly what it was.
Like, oh, I can't write that. But versus you're saying it, you're like just talking to yourself.
Yeah.
So I love that. That's really beautiful.
That's exactly right. And I find that to be useful sometimes for like my writing too. Like and by the way, I do want to touch on the social media thing because I think there's a lot we could chat about there too. But sometimes I'm just walking, I'm like, this would be a really good post, or this would be a really good caption to a reel I just recorded or something. And I do use the voice. It's not even a voice memo. I'll have to look at it on my phone, but it is it's almost like a different therapeutic process than journaling.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. So social media, you said that you used to have a lot of pressure. And one of the things, by the way, I think is so cool about you, but also about, how therapy is being presented on social media. I think the softer side to show that that therapists and mental health professionals in general aren't these like better than you, have it all figured out, have all the knowledge. That's not necessarily the case. And, hearing you talk about like your ADHD and your social media pressures, that's not something you would hear 5 years ago therapists talking about, or people expecting to see the human sides of therapists. But what do you think about, what's your approach on social media? What was it like before? How did you change it? Because I know I had to make some big changes too.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I can get a little obsessive with scrolling. When you post something, hoping that people like it or share it, and I feel this internal pressure, and this is just me speaking, and this is not against any of my colleagues. And I adore the people that I see who I really care about as colleagues and friends. When they get opportunities that I could also do, that messes with my head. I'm like, why didn't I get called? Or, why didn't this person say yes to being on my show, but is on someone else's show? Right. When we're in the similar world or, similar
that's
vibe
unfortunate.
or energy. Yeah. It messes with my head. It does. It's a topic that I talk to my therapist often about, of that pressure of frustration. And when I first started on social media, it was more to show camaraderie of a man fatherhood, and my wife and I were going through infertility. So it was like IVF stuff. So it was more of just like sharing, hey, this happens. But I was convinced that I have to post every day or else. I don't know what the or else was or what the goal of posting was to be. But when I started having kids and realizing how important my time is, as well as not really caring as much, it still gets to me, like I said, about that. I hope people see this. It gets to me. It does on some days where certain things or someone gets asked to speak at a conference and I'm like, hello. But it's the idea that I was not feeling value in my posts every day. I felt so much pressure to come up with a snappy thing or a cute idea with something. And also over time, I came out with, a color scheme that worked that I liked that had to do with my website and all these different things. So kind of more of a branding. Still not perfect, but I don't care anymore to be perfect. And that to me was a huge shift. Was if I want to post, I'll post. And if I don't have time because I have a private practice, a podcast, and 2 kids, and a family and a wife,
and friends and hobbies,
like that's okay. And if I happen to post, it's because I really believe in what it is, and the post is going to be because I value it and think that it might help somebody. And if I don't value that post right now in this day, like if you look, I use Canva. I save them into my phone, into like ideas that I'm thinking about. I have so many that I haven't posted because I'm not feeling that right now, but I felt it 2 weeks ago, but I wasn't ready to post it. So it's more of just giving myself freedom and love and compassion that if someone likes it, they'll like it. If they see it, they see it. Maybe the algorithm will be nice that day. Maybe it won't. That has nothing to do with me. But if I really feel it, but there's such a hardship of comparison and value of numbers, and people play into that. I mean, if I email someone to be on my show or to be on their show, and then they ask for my media deck with my numbers, and they were into it before, and then see our media deck and go, you know what, we're going to go a different direction, that hurts because it means it feels like it's a value of your worth, when in reality, it's a numbers game of what will get seen, but it doesn't feel that way. So it's just realizing there's more to your life than social media. And I'm speaking to a lot of teenagers right now. Like, hopefully, if they listen to your show, like your life is not social media. It's not TikTok. It's not the dances. It's not likes. And if that's how you go through your life, it's going to be very hard to build real relationships. And it's going to be very hard to live in the moment. It's going to be very hard. You asked me before. I told you over the weekend we were hanging out at this like fake beach in Vegas. We didn't take a lot of pictures because we were with our kids. We were like there for 3 hours. Also, it was water and sand. We didn't want to ruin anything. We left our phones in our bags and we just spent time with our friends and our kids. Other people took pictures of us, actually, and sent them to us. They were using their phones, but we made an effort for ourselves that like we need to be in this moment because it's so easy to be pulled away. And that's the hard part, is like social media pulls us away from presence. And I'm not saying it's the worst thing in the world. I would have never been able to meet you if it wasn't for social media,
right,
and get to know your beautiful soul and who you are, right? I would have never had that opportunity. It's really cool. And I've met amazing human beings through social media, my colleagues and some friends. And so there's a beauty to it, but just be careful, be smart, be aware of, if you feel like it's messing with you, put it away. If you feel that it's hurting you, put it away. If you feel that you're getting obsessive and you're not in this moment because you're scrolling and what? And you're not there, put it down. It will be there, I promise. It's not going anywhere, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But it's there, and just don't let that control your life. You are the controller of your phone and of your social media, not the other way around. And that was a hard lesson for me.
I was going to say, I think that's an important lesson, but it's also an ongoing lesson because to your point earlier, what you were saying and what I did back in December, which I mentioned earlier was what I would say was probably the worst day of my life. It was at that moment where I was like, social media is not helping me. It's actually hurting me. And I I shut off notifications, which to this day, my social media notifications, except LinkedIn, I keep LinkedIn on because that's more my realm of content that I enjoy and create. So I was sitting there and I'm like, these notifications, because you know what? When they're there, they're not helping. When they're not there, they're not helping. Because when they're there, I'm like, what is this? What are they saying? Who's saying what? Who's DMing me? And then when they're not there, it's like, why is no one DMing me? Why is no one commenting? It's like a double-edged sword. So I put the mindset that social media is going to be on my time. I'm not going to be on social media's time. And it's been incredibly helpful. And I had a neurologist on my podcast earlier this year, and he was talking about like the dopamine hits that you get and how simple they are and how you don't have to work for them with social media, and especially how bad TikTok is and the amount of time teenagers specifically are spending on it. And he said it's just like raises your baselines to the point where it's impossible to get a dopamine hit without just scrolling endlessly. And I think about that, and I do think about how I feel since I put social media on my time that I've leveled out a little bit on like the highs and lows of that type of stuff. And of course, I have no way to prove that there's anything actually different going on, but talking to experts, but it makes a big difference. And, I have the same thoughts as you. Why is nobody liking this? Or why, I think I'm shadow banned. So a lot of my stuff doesn't go as far as it used to go. But it is hard. And it does take a beat. I mean, you take a beating when you think about that. The other thing really quickly I wanted to touch on, I saw this, I screenshot it because I want to do a video similar to it myself, but it was basically like real life is real life. What you see on social media isn't. Like, don't let what you see on social media upset your real life is basically the concept. And I think that's such an important message for everyone to remember, because people are sharing the best parts of their life on social media. They are not sharing the lows in most cases. They are not sharing the tough conversations they're having in their life or the trials and tribulations they're going through. They're all sharing the best highlights, right? And amplifying the story that they're trying to tell instead of the story that is experiencing their life.
Yeah, and I was joking around with you before, like about this beach thing, that I could have taken a picture, right? And it was a beautiful setting with palm trees, with beautiful blue skies. I could have told you it was anywhere. And there's actually, I think, a really amazing, sad documentary of Fake Famous on Netflix, I think it is.
Oh gosh. Okay. I already know where that is going.
They interview like 5 people that they convince to be a part of their like lab to see if they can create fame for 5 rando people that have no fame, nothing, like they're not on shows or anything, by buying, and there's so much fakeness behind their fame and keeping up with that fame, whether it's followers, brand ambassadors, whatever it becomes for them. And it just shows you that you can go to a hangar of an airport and rent airplanes to look like you're in first class and take pictures with a backdrop of landing in certain airports. Or you can go to things, people have houses, these gorgeous houses in LA that they rent out their houses for you to go and take pictures in this really cool atmosphere and tag a hotel or a bar that looks similar so that you might be able to get branding, right? So you just be careful what you're seeing and how you're seeing it. And something that I'm trying to do actively, and I just want to share it as much as possible, is I'm trying to create simplicity of joy and fulfillment. So every day trying to make something that's real, simple, and joyous, whether it's a memory with my kids, whether it's a moment with myself, whether it's just listening to my favorite song for 10, 15 minutes on repeat, just that I am just in this moment of happiness and joy in this world, in the realness of the world. Because sometimes we get pulled away, life gets stressful, it's really hectic, we have an argument with our partner, something happens that's very overwhelming. But I know that I made a moment that's real. So yesterday I took a walk with my brother-in-law and sister-in-law's dog and my son, and sat at a park bench with him eating veggie straws, and he was babbling at me and talking to me. And we just sat there for 10, 15 minutes just being together. That was something I held on to the whole day. that I created that, we created together, it was beautiful, and that's not going away. And I don't have to, and I posted a story about it to talk about this idea, but I don't need to take a picture of it. I don't need to, post it online. I don't need to, those are the moments we have to create where we don't feel the need to post or have to post, or it's just our moment between us and ourselves, or us and other people. That's beautiful and simple. And I think if we do that, we're going to be able to reset our dopamine levels and be more really happy for real and really have joy, and not fakeness or our brain's hormone levels jumping up because we scrolled a little bit or posted something waiting for that one like, or, maybe for some people 10 or 3,000 or 4 million, who knows?
I think that's so well said and so important. I know I'm guilty of, and I've actually gotten better. I'm actually, be honest, I'm very proud of myself and how I've managed my social media, because once again, I'm this polarizing individual because I'm trying to start a foundation that helps people. So it's like, it's just, I know the hate comes in, the hate always comes in, but I feel like I've done a good job of showcasing what's real. Like you don't see glamorous photo shoots that I do. Like I've done one or two maybe, but they were, for headshots and stuff like that too. It wasn't these, glamorous influencer. I still go to the same dive bars. I still hang out with, the same group of people, and I don't go to these galas over New Year's. Like I went to, I had a couple drinks with my friend this last year, and that's when I returned to social media, and I said, hey everyone, just so you know, you're going to see all your favorite influencers and celebrities posting the glamorous gowns and glamorous outfits and glamorous events. And it's totally okay to just be at home. That is okay. If that's what your situation is. And I think more people just have to look inward for the happiness instead of trying to be like somebody else or live the way somebody else is living.
Okay. I love that. That's beautiful. Yeah. I remember you told me that, and I'm like, it's so true. And I also think that like half the people don't really want to be there anyways.
No, they're there because they have to.
Yeah. Like people like, oh, gosh, I got to get dressed up and put my makeup on and really do this. Like, seriously? And we're like, oh, I wish I was just hanging out with them,
Yeah. Well, I've been to a few, it's not recently, but I've been to a few events where I'm like, why am I here? I'm here because I think I'm supposed to be, not because I'm actually present or wanting to be here.
Yeah.
So last thing I wanted to ask you, before I give you the opportunity to ask me anything, was what's your like final word of advice for, I mean, we've covered a lot of topics here, but basically for any men that are listening, or women who are listening that want to be supportive of a man with, mental health, depression, ADHD, anxiety, whatever that might be.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is start small. If you're not ready yet to open up and talk about it, start in small ways, whether that might be, sending someone a text, how you feel, or writing a little journal or a letter, an email, or even just, hey, I'm not feeling so great today. That's all I feel comfortable sharing right now. And for the people in the men's lives, it's to create a space that they feel safe. There's two things. We need safety and security. So safety is that nothing's going to be used against me. Nothing's going to be used later on in an argument. And security is that in this moment, I trust you. It's not about safety of like, are you going to hurt me with this information? But emotionally, can I be secure with you to trust that this is okay, to feel that I'm respected for those feelings? So if we can create those two atmospheres for someone, when someone's ready, they will. When someone's available, they will. When someone's transparent with you, they will. It means that you also sometimes have to not expect the man to share on their own, but sometimes it takes asking a real hard question. Hey, babe, honey, my dear, whatever you call the person in your life, are you okay? Do you need something from me? Are you good? And not in a sassy way or a judgmental way or an aggressive, intense way. Like, yo, are you okay? Because you're really screwing up right now.
Right. You're really giving off bad vibes. Yeah.
It's like, come on, get it together. Put it to, you're really messing the day up. But if you see someone that's at their baseline is healthy, and they're not at their baseline, and they're either up or down and they're not themselves, sometimes it takes someone else to go, hey, are you good? What's going on? Can I help in any way? And if it's, I'm not okay, I don't know how you can help. They shared. Don't push. Don't try to get more information. Don't try to, force open the situation. Just be in the moment with that person, create that safety and security. And I can't promise, but I hope that people will share more with you if you keep doing that. So that's my little piece of advice.
That was really well said. And I think that's so simple that we can all do that. We can all give someone the space to share as much or as little as they want, but start to build that comfort zone.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right. Well, this is, so I get the funniest questions here, but this is the Ask Me Anything portion. So are there any burning questions that you're dying to know about me or from me or anything?
Well, I had you on my show and I asked you a lot of questions, but I'll ask you how tired are you of talking about the show, and how do you keep up that energy to talk about the show to help your organization thrive?
That's a great question, and something that I got homework from my therapist to do that we'll be talking about tomorrow. So,
ooh,
yeah,
I love it.
I'll be completely honest with you, which is difficult to do because I know I'll probably get more hate for this. But it was when I was at that really low point at the end of last year, coming into this year, I had made the active decision that I was done. I was done with Love is Blind. I was done with reality TV. I don't have, very many friends that I came out of it. I have Jeremy, who's my co-founder. But I have some of the people I keep in touch with, some people I've casually met, from the reality scene that I keep in touch with. But I was like, outside of that, I don't want to talk about the show anymore. I don't want to be asked about my marriage. I turned down many interviews about what I was up to, what the divorce was like, all of that stuff. I didn't want to do it. That was my real life. I was heartbroken. And I felt like a failure, quite frankly, across the board. And then, Jeremy was trying to help me decide to join and do the foundation with him. I was a hard no for months. But I realized I have to do something, because there's part of me, this isn't me, but this is part of me. And what is me is that I need to leave things better than I found them, or problem solve, or stand up for people that need standing up for, or don't have the ability to stand up, or even sometimes know that someone should be standing up for them, or that they could stand up for themselves. So it is very hard and is very painful. I just did an hour and a half worth of interviews this morning. Again, just going through over and over what this experience was like, and all the damage and all the heartbreak and all the mental angst that I still feel to this day. And, my therapist asked me a couple of weeks ago when I saw her last, she said, is this really worth it to you? Is this something that, is actually helping you, or is this something that's actually holding you back because you don't want to be in this world and you're keeping one foot in and one foot out? And so I had to think, okay, what are my strategies to really understand if this is something that I want to be doing? And the reality is I feel like I have to, and I do feel, it's hard to keep talking about this over and over, and it keeps me in this mindset of how much, pain has come from this. But what is Nick Thompson and who I am is doing the right thing. And I think in my heart and my soul that the right thing is to fight for change in this industry so that it doesn't damage people the way it damaged me, the way it damaged Danielle, the way it damaged other people that I've spoken to, and the way it's damaged people that haven't spoken to me, but So it's a driving force. And I don't want to say it's anger. It's more like this burning desire to do the right thing. And to me, this is the right thing to do. So that's kind of where I get my energy from. And I'm very stubborn. I'm a Taurus. When I believe in something and I know I'm doing the right thing, I am digging my feet in, and I will take whatever hits come, get smeared in the media, get thrown on Entertainment Tonight interviews with the guy who hosts Married at First Sight, which is another kinetic show which produces Love is Blind. I'm like, why is that's journalistic malpractice for him to be doing the interview. It's just you get like thrusted into these situations, these inflammatory headlines, and it just makes me stronger. I welcome their hatred. And
that's a leader, by the way. That leader is someone who doesn't always want to do it, but knows they have to, even though it comes with scars and burns and stuff like that. And I really do consider you someone who is making a massive impact of change in a world that never allowed that or looked. I think for years people looked at reality TV as these, they chose to do this and that and all these kind of things, and they knew what they're and we've talked about this. You've talked about it, how that you don't, and all these things, and the conniving backdoor of like small print and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But it really takes a lot of things. The only other question I have is I need to know where you got that jacket on your profile picture. I know I said this on my show. I love that jacket so much. It is such a cool, I could never pull off that. It's such a powerful look. It is so cool. It's feminine yet masculine. It is just, I love that freaking jacket. And whoever sold it to you, wherever you bought it, I love it.
I appreciate that. I'll tell a really quick funny story about where that jacket came from and the origins of it. I love floral pattern. I'm wearing it now. I wear it all the time. I wore it on the show. There was even a video that they edited together of all the different times I was wearing floral pattern. Yeah, it ended up not airing at the reunion, but like Nick and Vanessa were like, as people from Hawaii, we appreciate Nick's, Hawaiian shirts, and which I heard now you can't call them Hawaiian shirts. That's a cancelable offense. So floral pattern it is. But I was at, I went to LA for the iHeart Music Awards. Daniel and I were going to walk on the red carpet. I don't even remember what I packed, but I just remember being like, this is so boring. Like I am not, I don't want to wear like a specific suit or wear something. This is so stupid, but like wear something that I like wore on the show. And so we went to the mall the day of, and that was at Macy's. At Macy's, it was like $100. Everyone on the red carpet, they're like, what are you wearing? I'm like, I don't even know the brand. I got it at Macy's. It's like
Macy's. TJ Maxx,
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm not above that either. But.
No, if it looks good and it fits, who cares where it's from? But I always gotta shout out that jacket. I love it so much, and I love the confidence in that jacket. And I'm not here to ask really weird questions, even though I would love to hear some of the weirdest things out, afterwards or something. But just, I'm sure we'll ask the stupidest questions. But I really appreciate.
Actually, they're usually pretty good questions. They're usually pretty good questions on here. I'm very rarely not surprised. It's not the, well, what was it like? Yeah. Which is the most common question. So, well, thank you for coming on today, Eli. Where can people find your podcast, your Instagram, and any other websites you want to plug?
Yeah, sure. So my podcast is The Dude Therapist. I'm a dude who's a therapist, talking about mental health and wellness. It's for everyone and anyone to really listen to conversations like Nick and I. I have a website, Eli Weinstein LCSW, or my Eli Weinstein _LCSW. I go by Eli or Eli, so don't worry. It's all good.
I was like, I've been calling you Eli all
along. No,
it's
all good. It depends on the circles of who people know me and where they know me from.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
I have a long Jewish name, and if you knew me when I was younger, or you're like in my circles of that thing, people call me Eli. But outside of that, I go by Eli because it makes sense, and it's my name, right? Eli. So that's where you can reach out to me and really get to know me. And if you need something, please message me or email me. I would love to see if I can help in any way.
Amazing. And all of those links are in the show description. So go ahead and give him a follow and check out some of his other work. And listen to the podcast. The podcast is very good.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Eyes Wide Open. If you enjoy the show, the best way to support us is by sharing or dropping a review. For more information and content, check out engagewithnick.com or find me on Instagram at nthompson513. Don't go through life blind. Do the work so you can show up in the world with your eyes wide open.